There is a woman in Atlanta who wakes up at 3:47 every morning and does not set an alarm. Her body learned the time years ago, the way a body learns things it has done long enough that doing becomes the same as breathing. She walks 7 blocks to a bakery on Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, and the first thing she makes, before the lights are fully on, is cornbread. When it comes out of the oven, she wraps one small loaf in brown paper and sets it on the window ledge outside. The way her late husband used to do, she does not know who takes it. She has never looked. 31 floors above Peachtree Street, a man named Reginald Ossie is sitting alone in an office most people would call beautiful, staring at a headline he has read 4 times. He is not thinking about the headline. He is thinking about a loaf of bread that appeared on his window ledge every morning when he was 8 years old and had no one. He never found out who left it. He never stopped wondering. He has spent 35 years trying to repay that debt. He still does not know to whom. Stay with me. A Tuesday morning in Atlanta is about to answer that question, and what it costs will surprise both of them. If you are watching this right now, drop a comment below and tell me what city you are in and what time it is where you are. I want to know who is up early today and who is staying up late. Every person who watches this channel is here for a reason, and I want to hear from you. If this channel is new to you, hit subscribe and turn on the bell. We tell stories here about ordinary people who carry extraordinary things without anyone noticing, and every once in a while, someone notices. This is the story of Yvette Hollins and Reginald Ossie. It begins the way the most important things always begin, with something small enough to hold in both hands. Yvette Hollins turned 47 in October, in the back room of the bakery, eating a slice of her own birthday cake and standing up because there was no one to sit down with. She washed the plate, went back to work, and that was the kind of woman Yvette was. Not hard, not cold, just honest about what things were and disciplined about not waiting for them to be different. She had worked at Magnolia Hearth Bakery for 11 years, the last 4 as the only Smithson who opened. The bakery sat on the corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Drive and Sunset Avenue in Atlanta's West End. She earned $13.75 an hour. Her shift ran from 4 in the morning to 12:30 in the afternoon, no overtime. No benefits. No sick day she could take without doing arithmetic she did not want to do. The walk from her apartment on Peoples Street was 7 blocks. She had walked it 2,847 mornings, give or take the 11 days she had taken off for Jerome's funeral, and the 3 days after when she could not get out of bed and then got out of bed anyway, because the bread did not make itself. The bakery was dark when she arrived. She moved through the kitchen by memory. Flour bin, back left, the first burner running 2 degrees hotter than the dial said. The oven making its low hum when it reached temperature, almost like a breath settling into place. She knew the difference between that sound and the one it made when something was about to go wrong. She made cornbread first. Jerome's mother's recipe, stone-ground cornmeal, buttermilk, a measure of sugar that Jerome had called exactly right. The smell when the oven door opened was the smell of the hour before the city remembered itself. She took 1 small loaf from the pan. She wrapped it in brown paper, the unbleached kind, from the roll on the left side of the pass-through shelf, the same roll, the same shelf, and carried it to the front and set it on the window ledge outside. She had done this every morning for 14 months. Jerome had done it for 11 years before that. He had started when he was volunteering at the Grady Boys and Girls Club on Van City Road, after noticing that some children arrived in the morning, looking like they had not eaten since the day before. He could not feed all of them, but he could wrap 1 loaf and set it on the ledge early enough that whoever needed it could take it without asking anyone for anything. He never knew who took it. Yvette suspected he never tried to find out. She carried it on after he died because it was the last thing of his she could still do with her hands. She did not look to see who took it. She never looked. The drawer under the prep counter held what it always held, and one new thing. A white envelope, Meridian Collections Agency, acting on behalf of Grady Memorial Hospital regarding a balance of $31,400. The accumulated of 3 emergency admissions and 2 inpatient stays for a man named Jerome Anthony Hollins, who had died 14 months ago without health insurance. Jerome had not had insurance because Magnolia Hearth fell below the threshold, requiring small employers to offer group coverage under the Affordable Care Act. A private plan for a man his age with his medical history, high blood pressure, managed but $17 a month, or $7,404 a year. He had said they would manage. She had believed him. Georgia was one of 10 states that had not fully expanded Medicaid, and a partial expansion for working adults passed the year after he was gone, which was the kind of timing Yvette had stopped trying to make meaning of. She put the envelope back in the drawer. Reading it a 4th time would not change the number at the bottom. 11 days ago, a second letter had arrived. A firm called Northgate Property Solutions, on behalf of the new ownership group that had purchased the building. Her monthly commercial lease would increase from $847 to $1,340, effective in 38 days. She had $103 in her checking account. She cleaned houses in Buckhead through her bakery shift, $60 per house, $180 most weeks. The number she had worked out the night the letter arrived was a gap of $1,670 a month. She had written it down and underlined it twice, not because she had a plan, because writing it down was the first step toward having one. It was 5:18 in the morning when she heard the knock at the front door, soft, apologetic. She recognized it. Earl was 68 and slept most nights under the metal awning of the pharmacy on Ashby Street, 2 blocks east. He had been doing this since a boarding house on Oglethorpe raised its rates with 2 weeks' notice, and he could not cover the difference. She wiped her hands. She unlocked the door. She did not say good morning. She did not ask how he was. She had learned that asking made him feel he had to answer in a way that did not inconvenience her, which meant the answer was always fine, and fine was the least useful word in the language. She pulled a chair near the warmth of the prep counter and set it there without gesturing toward it. She went back to her dough. Earl came in. He sat. He took off his knit cap and held it in his lap. The warmth from the ovens moved through the small room slowly and completely, the kind of warmth you only notice when you have been in cold long enough to forget it was possible. Yvette cut the end piece of cornbread, the one she always reserved for herself and rarely ate, set it on a small plate near Earl without looking at him, and turned back to the dough. Earl did not say thank you. He had stopped 2 months ago, and Yvette understood this as the more honest gesture. Thank you was for transactions. What happened here at 5 in the morning was not a transaction. He ate. She worked. The ovens ran. The number 71 bus moved past the window at 5:21, its headlights making a brief pale sweep across the front glass. Earl finished his cornbread and set the plate down with the careful quietness of someone trying not to disturb what was holding. He put his cap on. He nodded. Not a thank you nod, something more specific, something that meant I was here and you knew and that was enough, and walked back out into the dark. Yvette watched the door close. She stood at the counter with her hands in the dough and Jerome's apron on the hook beside her and the envelope in the drawer and 38 days on the clock. She was tired. She was not broken. Those were two different things, and she had learned to be precise about the difference. She turned back to the dough. She had bread to make. Reginald O.C. had not slept. He had not slept well in 14 months, which was roughly how long the board had been asking questions he could not answer with numbers, and roughly how long his ex-wife had been taking longer each time before picking up his calls. He sat at his desk on the 29th floor of Crestline Tower on Peachtree Street at 5:23 in the morning. The city below was still mostly dark, its lights belonging to the people who cleaned the buildings and drove the buses before anyone else arrived to use them. Reginald had been one of those people once. He had not thought about that in a long time. The newspaper was on his desk. He had read the headline 4 times. Crestline's Fall. How Reginald O.C. lost the community he built for. He was 41 years old. He had founded Crestline Financial Technologies 9 years ago in a 1-bedroom apartment in Reynoldstown with a used laptop and $12,000 borrowed from a credit union in Vine City. At its peak, 18 months before the IPO, the company had been valued at $890 million. The company's mission had been simple: build financial infrastructure for Black and Latino communities that traditional banking had systematically excluded. Microloans without predatory interest, credit tools for people with thin files, mobile banking for the unbanked. He had testified before a Senate subcommittee at 34. He had been on the cover of Black Enterprise at 36. Then the venture capital arrived, in rounds, each one larger and quieter than the last. And somewhere in the third or fourth, Crestline had pivoted, not with a memo or a press release, but through a series of individually defensible decisions that added up to a different company. Institutional lending, commercial clients, higher margins. The community-facing products still appeared in the annual report. They received 17% of the engineering budget instead of 62%. The IPO had failed because the market did not believe Crestline knew what it was anymore. That was the analyst's sentence. Reginald had built the company to serve the people he had come from. He had watched it drift toward the people who invested in him. Knowing this and fixing it were two different problems, and he had been working on the second one for 18 months. His phone lay beside the newspaper, 8:02 p.m. yesterday. Missed call. Marcus. Charlotte. Marcus was a son 9 years old, living in Charlotte with his mother, Simone, after the divorce 2 years ago. Reginald had handled the divorce the way he handled most things during that period, efficiently without full attention, as a problem to be resolved between other problems. He had not understood until much later that Marcus had watched it happen the same way Marcus watched most things, quietly, learning from the side, learning the shape of things without being asked. This was the fourth Tuesday in a row the call had not connected, not because Marcus was angry, because Marcus had developed the habit of children whose fathers are very busy, which was the habit of not expecting to be answered and not organizing his disappointment into something that needed to be said out loud. He just did not call a second time. Reginald had been that boy once. A different kind of alone, a different kind of silence, but the same economy of not asking for what you did not believe was coming. He stood. He put on his coat. He did not tell his assistant. He took the stairs and walked out through the side entrance and turned south on Martin Luther King Jr. Drive because it was the only direction without a camera crew waiting. He had been walking for 11 minutes when he saw the light. A small bakery at the corner of MLK Jr. Drive and Sunset Avenue. One window lit warm and yellow against the dark. Hand-painted letters above the door. Magnolia Hearth Bakery. Est. 2003. The door was locked, but the light was on, and through the glass he could see a woman at a counter, working. He knocked. She appeared from the back, mid-40s, baker's apron, wooden spoon in her right hand the way you hold something you've forgotten you're carrying. She looked at him through the glass, not hostile, not warm. The expression of someone who is busy and had not asked to be interrupted. She opened the door 4 inches. "We open at 6, she said. "You can wait inside or outside, but I'm in the middle of something and I'm not stopping." She turned and walked back to the counter. Reginald stood in the doorway a moment. He could not remember the last time someone had spoken to him, as if they had not already decided whether he was worth accommodating. His assistant anticipated his preferences before he expressed them. His board members chose their words with the care of people who understood that his approval had consequences. Inside the rooms he had occupied for the past several years, people arranged themselves around him. He stepped inside. He sat at the table nearest the window. No menu came. No one asked what he wanted. He sat in the warmth while the woman worked without acknowledging him. The ovens hummed, and the street outside moved slowly through its dark hour. At 6 o'clock exactly, Yvette set a cup of black coffee on his table without asking. "Everybody who comes in at this hour drinks it black," she said, not looking at him. "You look like everybody." She went back to the counter. Reginald looked at the coffee. He drank. And then the oven opened. The smell arrived before he could name it. Stone ground cornmeal and warm butter and something beneath that was not an ingredient but an association. The smell of a window ledge on Markham Street in Vine City in the autumn of 1989. He was 8 years old. He had no one to look after him. And every morning, before he had to face the day, something wrapped in brown paper was waiting on the ledge outside. He set the cup down. He sat very still. "You all right?" Yvette asked from behind the counter. She had not looked up. "Fine," he said. Then, because it was more accurate, "That smell, I know it from somewhere." Yvette did not stop working. She was portioning the cornbread with the efficiency of someone who had done it 10,000 times. "Everybody does," she said. "It's just cornbread." She was right. It was just cornbread. But Reginald Osei sat at that table for 40 more minutes after the coffee was gone, watching Martin Luther King Jr. Drive come slowly to life outside the glass. And he did not reach for his phone once. He did not check his email. He did not run the numbers he had been running for 18 months. He sat in a small bakery at 6 in the morning and breathed air that smelled like something he had been trying to locate for a very long time. That had not happened in longer than he could remember. He came back the next morning, and the one after that. He came back 9 mornings in a row. Yvette noticed on the third day and said nothing about it. She set his coffee on the table at 6 o'clock, the same table, the same cup, and went back to work. Jerome had believed that people who came in before dawn were not coming for bread. They were coming for the 10 minutes before the day required them to be someone. She had kept that belief the same way she had kept his apron. On the 4th morning, Reginald was already at his table when Earl knocked at the door at 5:54. Yvette unlocked it, pulled the chair near the counter, set the cornbread on the plate, and went back to her dough. Earl sat, ate, left. Reginald watched the whole exchange without appearing to. His eyes were on the window, tracking the street. But Yvette had been reading people in this room for 11 years, and she knew the difference between a man looking at something and a man watching something. He was watching. He did not say anything about it that morning. On the 5th morning, he left $40 on the table for a $4 coffee. He was gone before Yvette came to clear it. On the 6th morning, he set it on the counter instead, directly in front of her. No explanation. Just the bill, folded once, placed beside the flour bin. She looked at it. She looked at him. "You already paid for the coffee," she said. "I know," he said. She looked at the money for another moment. Then she put it in the small tin on the back shelf where she kept the household fund, the account she used for repairs and supplies, and the occasional half dozen for a neighbor who could not always pay full price. She did not thank him. He did not seem to expect thanks. He went back to his table and looked at the street, and they sat in the comfortable silence of two people who had arrived, without planning it, at a form of understanding. On the ninth morning, Yvette was adjusting a loose letter on the front window sign, Magnolia Hearth Bakery, Est. 2003, when she spoke without looking around. How long has this place been here? Reginald looked up from his coffee. 21 years, she said. My husband opened it. I joined him 4 years later when we got married. She climbed back up and adjusted the letter. Outside on MLK Drive, a city bus moved through the intersection. The West End was waking up at its own pace, which was not the pace of Buckhead or Midtown and had never tried to be. She came on down from the stool and gestured toward the window, toward the street beyond it. This whole corridor used to be full of black-owned businesses, she said. My husband had a photograph from 1965 hanging in the back. A tailor, a pharmacy, an insurance office, a record shop, all within a single block. The interstates came through in the late 60s and they didn't reroute around this neighborhood. Reginald was quiet. Now there are 11 of us left, Yvette said. Between Auburn Avenue and here, 11 businesses that have been in the same family more than 10 years. We used to have 47. She said it the way she said most things, without performance, without the particular emphasis of someone trying to make a point land. She was stating what was true. Reginald looked at his coffee. He looked at the street. I know those numbers, he said. I've used them. Yvette looked at him. It was the most he had said in 9 mornings. I built a company to help people like you, he said. The ones the banks wouldn't touch, paused. Then, because it was more accurate, I built it for that. I'm not sure that's what it became. Yvette did not offer consolation. She looked at him the way she looked at bread that had come out slightly wrong, not with judgment, but with the attention of someone trying to understand what happened so it wouldn't happen again. Then she went back to the counter. She had 24 rolls to finish before 7. Reginald sat with what he had said. He had not said it to a board member or a journalist or an investor. He had said it to a woman who did not know who he was at 6:15 in the morning, and it had come out more true than anything he had said in 18 months of strategy sessions. On the 10th morning, Yvette took the corn from the oven when she said, without preamble, my husband used to leave bread on that ledge outside. Started when he was volunteering on Vine City Road around 1988 or 89. He couldn't feed all the children who came through hungry, so he'd leave one loaf where anyone could take it without asking. She set the pan down. She cut the cornbread into portions with the same unhurried efficiency as every morning. He did it for 11 years, she said. I kept it going after he died because it was the last thing of his I could still do. Reginald had his cup halfway to his mouth. He set it down. Yvette was looking at the pan. She was not looking at him. She did not notice his hand had gone still. He never knew who took it, she said. I don't think he ever tried to find out. He just left it and went to work. She moved the cornbread to the rack and went to check the next oven. Reginald sat at the table. The street outside was brightening by degrees, the kind of slow change you only catch if you are sitting still enough to watch it. He had been sitting still for 10 mornings now. He was getting better at it. Markham Street, Vine City, a foster home, summer of 1988 to November of 1992. Brown paper, the same weight every morning. He had eaten it standing up because sitting down felt like something that required a family. He had asked once who left it. He had been told nobody knew. He had stopped asking. He had thought about the bread for 35 years. Not every day. More the way you think about something that arrived at exactly the right moment and left no name behind, with a gratitude that had no address. Yvette came back to the front of the bakery carrying the next tray. Around 8889 on Vine City Road, Reginald said. His voice was level. She nodded without looking up. That's right. He looked at his hands on the table. That's a long time to keep something going, he said. She considered it then. Jerome would have said it wasn't long enough. She put the tray in the rack. She did not turn around. Reginald sat at the table for another 20 minutes. He did not touch his coffee. He sat in the warmth of the bakery and thought about a boy on Markham Street who had eaten bread from a window ledge every morning for 3 years and never learned who left it. He left a 20 on the table when he went. He did not fold it. He came back the next morning. The box had been in the back storeroom for 14 months. It was a cardboard banker's box that Jerome had packed 3 weeks before his second hospitalization. He had labeled it in his handwriting, neat upright letters, Misk, keep. Yvette had moved it 3 times since he died. She had not opened it, not once. She opened it on a Thursday afternoon in the second week of February, 11 days before the Northgate rent deadline, because she was looking for the original lease agreement and had run out of other places to look. The lease was not in the box. What was in the box? 7 years of tax returns, a folder of invoices from the oven repair in 2017, Jerome's original business license, 2 birthday cards from Yvette's mother who had died in 2020, a rubber band that had long since lost its elasticity, and at the bottom, underneath everything else, a small notebook, brown leather cover, soft at the corners from being carried. Jerome had not carried it in years. She would have remembered, which meant it had been in this box for a long time. She sat down on the storeroom floor. She opened it. The handwriting was Jerome's, but smaller than his usual hand, more careful, as though he understood the pages were not unlimited and had decided to use them well. The entries were not dated in most cases. They were not diary entries. They were lists, names, addresses, short notes beside each one. Yvette turned pages slowly. The early entries were from the late 1980s. She could tell by the street names, the addresses in Vine City and English Avenue. Jerome had spent 4 years as a volunteer with the Grady Boys and Girls Club before they married. She had known this. She had not known he had kept records. The records were not formal. They were the records of a man who had noticed things and written them down because writing them down was how he made sure he did not forget. A woman on Griffin Street who needed winter coats for 3 children, sizes noted beside her name. An elderly man on Burbank Drive whose medication schedule Jerome had helped him organize. A teenager who had missed 3 weeks of school and whom Jerome had driven to the free clinic on Lucky Street twice because the boy had no way to get there on his own. Page after page, small gestures, quietly kept. Yvette's throat tightened. She had known Jerome was this kind of person, but the notebook made it specific in a way that knowing abstractly never could. It gave the kindness a weight, an address, a name. She turned to the middle of the notebook, a section that ran for 6 or 7 pages, entries grouped by a single address, 441 Markham Street, Vine City. A foster home. She recognized the format. The entries spanned from summer 1988 to November 1992. Most were brief. Notes on the children who lived there. Which ones walked to school? Which ones needed breakfast before they left? One entry read, 3rd floor window, boy approx. 8-9 years, leaves 6:15 for school, no breakfast most mornings. Started leaving bread on the ledge Monfry, he takes it. Below that, over the following pages, periodic check-ins. Still taking it, seems steadier. Made eye contact today, did not stop. Good sign. Then later, they moved him to a new placement, November. Don't know where. Left the bread a few more days in case nobody took it. And at the bottom of the last entry for that address, in smaller letters, as if Jerome had written it as a note to himself and not expected anyone else to read it. First, Reggie. Last name, never got it. Hope he's all right, wherever they put him. Yvette sat on the storeroom for a long time. The fluorescent light buzzed above her. The oven timer was ticking. Outside on MLK Drive, the afternoon traffic was building. She read the page again. First name, Reggie. Last name, never got it. She thought about the man at the window, the dark coat, the black coffee, the way he had gone still the first morning when the oven opened, the way he had said around 8889 Vine City Road, in a voice that was level in the way a voice is level when a person is working hard to keep it that way. She closed the notebook. She sat with her hands on the cover. Then she went to the front of the bakery and looked at the table by the window. Empty. It was 4 in the afternoon. He was never there at 4 in the afternoon. She put the notebook in her apron pocket. She finished the day's baking. She went home and slept without setting an alarm for the first time in months. He came in at 5:51 the next morning. She set his coffee down. She pulled the cornbread from the oven. She worked in silence for 11 minutes. Then she took the notebook from her apron, walked to his table, and placed it in front of him. She opened it to the right page. She did not say anything. She went back to the counter. Reginald looked at the notebook. His eyes moved to the page she had opened. He read the first line of the entry. He read it again. His hands were flat on the table. He did not move them. He read through the page slowly, the way a person reads something they are afraid will disappear if they go too fast. First name, Reggie. Last name, never got it. He set his hand down on the page. Not to hold it down, just to make contact. The way you touch something you thought you had lost and want to confirm is real. He did not speak for a long time. Yvette was at the counter. She was not looking at him. She was portioning the next batch with the same unhurried efficiency as every morning, the way she did everything, without rushing, without performing, just doing the work required. When Reginald finally looked up, his face was different. Not broken, not theatrical, just the face of someone who had been carrying something alone for a long time and had finally put it down and was still learning what it felt like not to be holding it. He looked at Yvette. She met his eyes. She did not say, "I told you so." She did not say Jerome would have been glad. She did not fill the room with words the room did not need. She nodded once, the same nod Earl used when he left in the mornings, the nod that meant I was here and you knew and that was enough, and went back to her bread. Reggie, Reginald thought. He had not been called that in 35 years. It felt like being found. Reginald did not do anything that morning. He sat at the table for a long time. He did not reach for his phone. He did not open the notebook again. He sat the way a person sits when they have received something they cannot return and are still deciding what to do with it. He left at 7:12. He said Yvette did not ask when. He came back 3 days later on a Friday. He was wearing the same dark coat. He sat at the same table. She set coffee in front of him without asking. He waited until she had gone back behind the counter. "How much is the debt?" he said. Yvette did not look up from the dough she was working. She had been thinking about what she would say if he asked for 3 days. $31,400, she said. He was quiet. "And the new rent?" She told him. She told him the gap. She told him the number she had underlined twice in the notepad in the drawer. She did not tell him these things as a request. She told him the way she stated most things, as facts, the way you answer a question when someone has asked it plainly and you respect them enough not to deflect. He nodded. He did not say, "I'll take care of it." He did not say, "Don't worry about it." He said, "I want to think about how to do this right." He finished his coffee. He left $40 on the table. He did not fold it. Yvette watched him go. She put the money in the tin. She went back to work. 4 days after that, the woman arrived. She walked in at 10:14 on a Tuesday morning on the slow hours between the breakfast rush and the lunch run. She was 30, perhaps 32, in a charcoal jacket, her hair natural and close-cropped, a leather portfolio under her arm. She looked around the bakery with the particular assessment of someone costing the room against a use case. Her name was Deja Moro. She said this directly, extending her hand, which Yvette shook once. She was head of communications at Crestline Financial Technologies. Yvette recognized the name. She had seen it on the cover of the Atlanta Business Chronicle. She had not connected it to the man at the table by the window. She connected it now. Deja Moro sat down without being invited to and placed her portfolio open on the table. She spoke for 4 minutes without pausing, which Yvette listened to without interrupting, because that was how you found out what someone actually wanted. Crestline was rebuilding its community identity following the IPO setback. A narrative campaign, authentic stories, real neighborhoods. The story of Magnolia Hearth, of Jerome's years volunteering in Vines City, of the bread and the ledge and the habit that outlasted him. An interview, photographs, a feature on Crestline's social channels. A participation fee, $15,000. Deja Moro smiled in a way that was practiced and not unkind and waited. Yvette looked at her. At the polished template dambled before Deja had ever walked through this door, at the space where Jerome's story was supposed to go. Then she said, in the same tone she used to tell Earl when the bakery opened, "Jerome didn't leave bread on that window so people would know his name. He left it so a child wouldn't go to school hungry. Those are two different things, and I'm not going to help you confuse them." She went back to the counter. The cornbread needed checking. "There's a significant financial benefit here," Deja said behind her. "I know the number," Yvette said without turning. "The door is behind you." The scrape of the chair, the bell above the door, then quiet. 2 hours later, Reginald walked in. He sat down. He set his phone face down on the table, which was new. He looked at her. "Deja told me what happened," he said. Yvette poured 2 cups of coffee, brought them to the table, and sat down across from him. She had not sat at a table with a customer since Jerome. What was happening required her to be present in a different way than standing behind a counter. "I told her no on your behalf," she said. "You should have done it yourself." He looked at the coffee. "You're right." She looked at him, not angry, something more specific, clear. "What you're trying to do," she said, "I need it to be what Jerome would have done. Not a campaign. Not a story that makes Crestline look good. Something real. Do you understand the difference?" He looked at her for a moment. "Yes," he said, "I do." Then she said the things she had been thinking since she put the notebook in her apron pocket and went home and slept without an alarm. "Don't buy it for me. Jerome didn't leave that bread for me. He didn't know me yet. He left it for whoever needed it that morning. If you're going to do something, do it the same way. Not for this bakery. For all 11 businesses on this corridor that have been here longer than either of us." Reginald was quiet. "That's going to cost more," he said. She looked at him. Jerome didn't calculate it either. He sat with that. Then he picked up his coffee. He had understood community development financial institutions since Crestline's found EFI. The company could acquire commercial property in a low-income census tract and apply for New Markets tax credits, a federal program from 2000 to offer below-market leases to long-standing community businesses. Crestline had this structure from the start. It had never used it the way it was designed to be used. He had the mechanism. He had not had a reason that did not feel like accounting. He looked at Yvette, then he took out his phone and made 2 calls. The first was to his legal team. The second was to Deja Moro. Deja, he said when she picked up. The Auburn Avenue project. I want you leading it. No press release, no campaign, no photographs until the work is done. Jerome Hollins left bread on a window ledge for 3 years before anyone wrote about it. That's the model. A pause on the line. That's not how you rebuild a brand. No, he said. It's how you rebuild a company. Tomorrow morning, we'll talk. He looked at Yvette. She was already back at the counter. She did not say thank you. He did not expect it. He drank his coffee and watched Martin Luther King Jr. drive and thought about a boy on Markham Street who had never said thank you either, who had just taken the bread and gone to school. Jerome had not needed the thanks. Jerome had needed the boy to be all right. He was trying. 16 months later, Magnolia Hearth Bakery was still on the corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Drive and Sunset Avenue. The sign was new, same name, same year, same hand-painted letters. But the frame had been replaced, and beneath the main lettering, in smaller paint that Yvette had put there herself on a Sunday morning when the street was quiet. Two names, Jerome and Yvette Hollins, S. 2003. Not a memorial, a record. The oven was the same. The flour bin was still back left. The first burner still ran 2 degrees hot, and Yvette still adjusted for it without thinking. She had hired Janelle in February, 24 years old, daughter of a neighbor on Peoples Street who had mentioned over the back fence that her girl was looking for morning work and did not mind the early hours. Yvette had said, "Come Tuesday and see." Janelle had come Tuesday and stayed. She was learning to make cornbread now. She was learning the difference between the hum the oven made when it reached temperature and the sound it made when the thermostat's ugly. She was not there yet, but she was getting closer, and Yvette was a patient teacher in the way that Jerome had been. She taught by doing the thing in front of you and trusting you to watch. The medical debt was gone. It had been resolved through a community health relief fund that Yvette had applied to in March, 8 months after the conversation at the table. She had filled out the form herself at the kitchen table on a Tuesday night. She did not know the fund had been endowed in part by Crestline Financial Technologies. She knew only that she had applied and that she had been found eligible and that the envelope from Meridian Collections Agency had stopped arriving. She did not ask who had made it possible. Some things you accept without tracing them to their source, because the source does not change what the thing is. The building at 1147 Martin Luther King Jr. Drive was no longer owned by Northgate Property Solutions. The transaction had closed in June, a community development financial institution acquisition of a mixed-use commercial property in a qualified low-income census tract, financed in part through New Markets tax credits. The new lease structure offered controlled rents to all 11 long-standing tenants, with a 15-year stability covenant attached. The Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta had cited the transaction in a report on community reinvestment practices published the following spring. The report did not mention Reginald Ossie by name. It cited Crestline Financial Technologies as the acquiring CDFI. 11 businesses, 11 families that had been on this corridor longer than the interstate highways that had tried to cut through it. Yvette had read the lease twice and signed it and put it in a new folder, not in a cardboard box in the storeroom, but in the file cabinet behind the counter where things went when they were settled. Reginald still came in on Tuesday mornings. Not every Tuesday. Some Tuesdays he was in Charlotte, where he picked Marcus up from school on Friday afternoons and brought him back on Sunday evenings. It was not enough. He knew it was not enough, but Marcus knew the sound of his father's car now and ran toward it with the specific sprint of a child who had stopped being surprised and started being certain. That was different from before. It was the only difference Reginald was sure of, and he held on to it. On the Tuesdays he was not in Atlanta, he called Marcus instead, and they talked for 20 minutes, sometimes 30, about what Marcus was reading and whether the Charlotte Hornets had a chance, and the particular opinions of a 9-year-old on whether waffles were better than pancakes. The answer, according to Marcus, was definitive and involved a ranking system that Reginald had written down on a notepad and kept in his desk drawer. On the Tuesdays he did come, he sat at the same table. She set black coffee in front of him at 6 o'clock without asking. He did not fold the money he left on the table. They had not talked again about Jerome, or the notebook, or Markham Street. Some conversations do not need to be continued. They have already said what they needed to say. What comes after is something else, quieter, less defined, but no less real. One Tuesday in October, Yvette asked him a question. She had been thinking about it for several weeks and had decided to ask it plainly the way she asked most things. "Did you thank them?" she said. Reginald looked up from his coffee. She met his eyes, Jerome and me. "Did you ever thank us?" He set the cup down. He thought about it. Not performing the thinking, actually doing it. "Not yet," he said. She nodded. Jerome wouldn't have wanted it. He looked at her. "I know." She went back to the counter. The morning was moving forward the way mornings do, and there was bread to make. Earl knocked at 5:54, as he had every morning that week. Yvette unlocked the door. She set the chair near the warmth of the counter. She cut the end piece of cornbread and set it on the small plate without looking at him. Earl sat, 80, left. Reginald watched. He had been watching for 16 months now. He had learned, slowly, what Jerome had known without being taught, that the point was not the watching. The point was that you kept showing up. After Earl left, Yvette took one small loaf of cornbread from the pan. She wrapped it in brown paper. She walked to the front of the bakery and set it on the window ledge outside. The same ledge, the same height, the same time. She did not look to see who took it. She went back to her dough. Jerome Anthony Hollins had baked bread for 35 years and never knew the name of the boy who needed it most. He did not calculate the return. He did not wait for acknowledgement. He wrapped it in brown paper and set it on a window ledge and went to work. And he did this 1,100 times before he stopped being able to do it. And then his wife did it for him, because she understood what he had understood, that the bread was not about the bread, and the ledge was not about the ledge, and the boy was never just one boy. It was just a small loaf. It was enough to last 35 years. It is still on the ledge. This is a work of fiction. Yvette Hollins and Reginald Ossie are invented. Jerome's notebook does not exist in any archive. But the things that ground this story are real. More than 100 million Americans are currently carrying medical debt. In Georgia, where this story takes place, an incomplete Medicaid expansion has left hundreds of thousands of working adults, people who earn too much to qualify for existing programs and too little to afford private insurance, without a safety net. When they get sick, the bills arrive. Many cannot pay them. The debt follows. The Sweet Auburn corridor in Atlanta's West End have lost more than 70% of their Black-owned small businesses since 2010, pushed out by rising commercial rents and the slow erasure that comes when a neighborhood becomes desirable to people who did not build it. Community Development Financial Institutions, CDFIs, exist to address exactly this. The New Market Tax Credit Program has directed more than $7 billion toward low-income communities since 2000. It is a real tool. It is often used as an accounting mechanism by institutions that are not thinking about who lives on the block. I wrote this story because I believe in Jerome Hollins, even though I invented him. I believe in the people who do small, consistent, anonymous things that outlast them. The bread on the ledge is not a metaphor. It is just bread. It is exactly that simple and exactly that hard to keep doing. There is something I want to ask you before you go. Think about a time when someone did something small for you, something they probably did not think twice about, something cost them so little they likely forgot it by the following morning, that you are still carrying. Maybe it was a teacher who kept a piece of paper in a drawer. Maybe it was a neighbor who knocked when they did not have to. Maybe it was someone who left something on a window ledge and walked away without looking back. Most of us have one of those. Most of us have never said so out loud. Leave it in the comments. Not a summary, not a reflection. Just what happened and why you remember it. I read everyone. If this story meant something to you, share it with someone who needs it today, not tomorrow. The person you are thinking of right now is the right person. The timing does not need to be perfect. Jerome did not wait for the perfect morning. He just wrapped the bread and set it down. If this channel is new to you, subscribe and turn on the bell. Every story we tell here is about the same thing. The people who do the work nobody photographs, and what that work leaves behind when they are gone. One more thing. 11 businesses on a single corridor in Atlanta. 47 once, now 11. If you are in a city right now, think about the places that have been there longer than you have. The bakery, the barbershop, the pharmacy with the handwritten hours on the door. Those places belong to someone who got up before you did. Someone who has been showing up for 20 years without waiting to be noticed. Go in, buy something. Tell them how long you have been meaning to. That is not charity. That is a transaction that works in both directions. And both people leave with something. Stay kind, stay consistent, and never underestimate what a small loaf of bread can build. Subscribe now and turn on notifications. We will see you in the next one.